I grew up in a small town in rural Oregon, and when I was about 12 years old, I went to work for my father in his gas station. One day while I was working there, the Route 66 television show came through our town. Man, I thought that was about the coolest thing I'd ever seen, and I thought, boy, I'd love to work in something like that. It was the first time I can remember that I ever thought of a career aspiration. After I got out of high school, I went to California with my friend Mike. We were going to be surf bums. It was going to be so cool. And we did learn to surf a little bit, but what we found out was we really didn't fit in with the people that lived along the beach in California. So we headed back up here. I stayed with my uncle for a while, and through him and some friends, I got a job at the Tacoma smelter. And we worked that job. I could see it was going just nowhere. So I decided I would join the military and kind of stir my life up. I did spend a little time as a soldier. I got to go to the Republic of Vietnam and help that, and went to a thing called the Dominican Republic crisis that everyone's forgotten now. But I learned a lot about organization, and I learned to learn things because the part of the military I was in was all about training. That was pretty cool. After working in the spring and summer and early fall for the smelter, I took the money I'd saved and the money I'd saved overseas when they didn't tax us in Vietnam, and I started to go back to school on the VA bill. And it wasn't a lot of money, but I started out at Highline College. And I thought I'd learn to be a filmmaker because I really was enthusiastic about that. There were only 2 film classes that were available at Highline College. I took both of them. And afterwards, I went in to see my instructor to find out what advice I could get from him about a career. And I asked him, I said, I'm a little older than some of the students, and I'm a little more serious about this, I think, than a lot of them are. Could you give me some guidance? And he said to me, if I had the answer to that question, he says, do you think I would be sitting here? I worked my way through college. I worked at roofing. I worked concrete foundation pouring. I worked for a food warehouse and other minor things. I finally finished up and got a degree in teaching business subjects, teaching marketing and advertising and that sort of thing for a local high school, Kent Ridge High School right here in Kent. After a total of about 7 years of teaching both in Kent and in Auburn High School, I decided that I was going to try to do what I wanted to do no matter what anybody said. So I went back to school and tried to make myself a film program out of the courses that were offered at the University of Washington, and also went as a graduate student to UCLA and tried to train myself up. This was going along, and I was still thinking I might end up just teaching it, when my friend Diana and I got an opportunity to make a corporate film for a local high-tech company. After we made that, it was kind of a big hit. A lot of sales followed that film, and we started showing it to other companies, and pretty soon I had a little business making corporate films. I'd already shot one documentary film, a film called A New Year for the Mien, which was about Laotian refugees being resettled in the Rainier Valley. About the time that I had quit graduate school and started my business, that film kind of started to win some prizes. So I got a little bit into that community and started working on documentary films. My friend Phil Lucas and I did a lot of things about Native people. I did stuff in China. I did a whole bunch of different documentaries about subjects all the way from Native people's rights to various aspects of ecology over the years. Actually, a film is a little bit like going to war, because first you have your planning and the reasons you're going to make the film and the script and all that. Then gradually you develop the script, you get the money, you get the information together to find out where you're going to go shoot, what gear you're going to use, what people are going to be able to be in front of the camera for you, all this background stuff. Then all this comes together in maybe only a few weeks of shooting. And then it's all shot and digitally delivered or film delivered to post-production and special effects people. But that's really one of the most tense parts of the whole thing. And that's where it's really important that we all work together as a good team to get through this really expensive part of things with the budget we have. The thing that surprised me most about this work is I had struggled and struggled to get into bigger jobs. But what I found out is that for me, documentary films or little projects are really a lot more fun. I would rather be a little bit bigger cog in a smaller gearbox than a tiny cog in a great big gearbox where they're worried about do this, then do that, then do this, and you don't have any freedom or creative input. I was still looking for a way to get into the conventional movie business, and there was a device called the Steadicam that was a new thing then, invented by a guy named Garrett Brown that I got to know. And I found out about a Steadicam system that was available in Los Angeles. The fellow had bought it and discovered he wasn't physically up for the work, brought it back and traded it in, and it was basically a brand new rig for a discount price. So I flew down there and bought this thing. I went back to New England, where the school was, and trained with the inventor of it, Garrett Brown, and became credible as a Steadicam operator. Being an operator on film and television stuff led me into some DP jobs. I found actually that I prefer operating to director of photography jobs. It's strange because my middle son actually is a DP in Los Angeles now. People ask what was interesting about it, and the thing that was interesting to me is that I love storytelling. I've loved stories. I've been a big reader all my life. I will sit down and watch any kind of a film that has some kind of a story to it. I like music where the lyrics has a story to it. And I'm not a great storyteller myself. I've done a little writing, I've done a little producing and directing. Really not the thing I'm good at. So I've kind of stuck to what I'm good at, which is really as a kind of a sidekick to the director or a kind of a sidekick to the DP and the person that helps to make things go along to tell the story in the best way we can with the resources we have. After a few years, an opportunity opened up to do camera crane work with remote camera heads that were coming into vogue. So by this time we'd made a few dollars and I went down and bought a rig. Eventually it became a camera crane that went over 40 feet with digital heads and all kind of crazy accessories. And we ended up doing not only a lot of movies and TV work with that, but we also did things like entertainment over at the Gorge and the various venues. I've been in every casino and every venue in this town. Between working as a Steadicam operator, having eventually had 2 different camera cranes and a very nice Steadicam system, and having worked as a documentary camera guy, I ended up traveling all over the world, and I've been in over 24 countries, most of it doing this work, including about 8 trips to China that were pretty extended. I've been a guest speaker for some of the local colleges and their film programs, and even the film program downtown. And it's funny because I go there to show them things about gear and different kinds of methods and technical things. And the question I always get asked is, how do I find my way into this career? Well, that's a difficulty because this isn't a career with a lot of paid jobs. Most everybody doing this work works on a freelance job-to-job basis. It's one of the wonderful things about the work is that a lot of people's office have that one person you wish would never show up. We don't have that guy because they never show up the second time because they're not called back. So we get a really good, tight crew of people that work hard together and do a really wonderful job. So the first thing I tell you, if you're interested in doing this work, is you've got to be willing to live with a certain amount of unsureness because you're only going to be as good as your last job. The other thing is there's a lot of different kinds of work in the film business. It's not just camera work. There's set work, there's costumes, there's makeup and hair, there's sound, there's all kinds of technical doodah that you could find. And the thing you want to do is don't go out and say, oh, I'm going to be a director, because no one's going to hire you off the top to direct their film. There's just too many directors available. Think about how you'll fit into it. Think about the filmmaking world, or really any career you go to look at. Think about it like an ecology. There's all these different kinds of animals in the woods, and they all eat different things. And you got to decide how you can fit in where there's a place for you. There's space for you in that place. Or you maybe go to New York or London or Los Angeles where there are more spaces. You know, most of filmmaking, after all, it's only a film. It's entertainment. It's just a product. The thing where this was most like Rotary for me was in documentary film.
As village groups discussed the distribution of money, and vote on representatives, they're challenging a centuries-old hierarchy that gives the local chief almost total power.
How are you?
These residents of Daniel Village gave up their money to the tribal chief, and they say he kept the wildlife revenue for himself and refused to fund their community projects.
There's one problem here. Bajanima chief, he's the chief and he's royal. So we feel we are compressed. We are too small to talk to him. Maybe you can come in and help us.
If we look back in the history, you're looking almost at a feudal system where a chief dominates decision making and is not held accountable. And the people underneath him are subjects. What we're trying to do is turn people into responsible citizens. And I think the shift from subject to citizens is not going to happen overnight. And I can see evidence every day that that shift is occurring.
That shift towards grassroots democracy is being fueled by the program of wildlife conservation.
I really believe that when people see how other people live, what they care about, what matters to them, what their situation is, how the world works for them, when you identify with that and understand it better, you're going to be better in the way that you treat those people, the way you think about them, the way you see how much they're like you.